Hey guys, James here with another Civ 6 Historical Spotlight, this time going over the life and times of Catherine de Medici. With the latest update in Civ 6, we were brought the Magnificence version of Catherine de Medici, and today I'll be covering her story as well as the historical background behind her unique bonuses for both her Black Queen and Magnificence versions. As usual, I apologize in advance if I butcher any of the pronunciations in this video. Catherine de Medici was born on April 13th, 1519, as part of the Medici family, a very wealthy banking family of Italy, famous especially for their patronage of the arts. The Medici family were de facto rulers of Florence at the time, despite being of common birth. Unfortunately, her parents died when she was less than a month old, resulting in her being cared for by her grandmother and later her aunt. In 1527, the Medici were overthrown in Florence, forcing Catherine to live in convents with nuns. In order to take back the city, Pope Clement VII, who also happened to be Catherine's uncle, had Charles V of the Holy Roman Empire siege and take the city. The city surrendered, and Catherine left the convents and traveled to Rome to meet with her uncle the Pope. Clement then married Catherine to Henri, Duke of Orleans, who was the second son of King Francis I of France. On the night of their wedding, apparently King Francis even came into the bedroom to make sure that the marriage was consummated and reported that each had shown valor in the joust. Despite a successful marriage night, the marriage itself was not perfect. After Clement passed, the new pope refused to pay the dowry, creating some friction. Additionally, Henri proved to have more interest in his many mistresses, including his personal favorite, Diane de Poitiers, to whom he gave crown jewels and the Château de Chenonceau, which Catherine had desired. Catherine was given little, if any, political power. After Henri's brother, Francis, died, Henri became next in line to rule, and as such, pressure came upon Catherine to bear children. It had been nearly a decade of marriage and she had borne no children yet, so she tried various methods, including stuffing dung in her womanly areas, as well as drinking mule piss, which is of course the medical term. Eventually, with the help of physician Jean Fernel, Catherine became pregnant and bore 10 children. Not all at once. 7 of these children survived infancy. The last of the 10 children were twins, who had nearly killed Catherine during birth. One child ended up being stillborn, while the other died within a few weeks. After the death of the twins, she focused on raising her children, ensuring the best education and upbringing that she could. In 1556, she sent for the famed astrologer Nostradamus, who cast horoscopes for her and her 7 children. It was rumored that Nostradamus crafted a talisman for Catherine, made from a mix of metals, goat blood, and human blood. It is also thought that Nostradamus predicted the death of Catherine's husband, Henri. In 1559, as part of the wedding for their 13-year-old daughter Elizabeth to King Philip II of Spain, Henri joined the jousting tournament. He was badly injured as his opponent's spear broke and splinters impaled his eye and brain. Eventually, he would die from the damage of the accident. As a result, Catherine donned black, mourning in memory of Henri. This brings us to the Black Queen persona for Catherine in Civ 6, which is also the name of her leader agenda. I think the reason for this naming and costume scheme is twofold. As mentioned, Catherine famously donned black in mourning of her husband Henri, and in many paintings, she's also seen wearing black. The Black Queen persona also comes from the fact that Catherine had developed a reputation for being involved in the occult. This was derived from the fact that she was unable to birth a child for so long, which led some to think that she was involved in witchcraft. Additionally, this reputation for the occult also came from her patronage of Nostradamus and the Ruggieri brothers, astrologers who were thought to be also involved in necromancy. The agenda itself makes it so that AI Catherine likes to get as many spies and as much diplomatic visibility as possible, and likes civs who do the same. While this effect itself doesn't really tie into the idea of the Black Queen, we'll see later with the rest of her reign why the developers may have chosen this agenda. Following Henri's death, their son, Francis II, became King of France at 15 years old. He had married Mary, Queen of Scots, who Catherine had actually helped raise at the French court. Mary had 2 uncles, known as the Guise brothers, who following the death of Henri came to the French court and moved themselves in with the young king and queen, seizing control of the court. Without much other choice, Catherine allied herself with the Guise brothers in order to maintain her power. The Guise brothers, being staunchly Catholic, started persecuting Protestants in France, who were also known as the Huguenots. Catherine tried her best to be moderate, speaking out against the persecutions, but not necessarily supporting the Protestants either. However, tensions were high. The Bourbons, two brothers who led the Protestants, tried to overthrow the Guises, and fighting ensued. Louis de Bourbon started to attack Catholic towns, forcing Catherine to summon him to court and imprison him for his offenses against the crown. However, shortly after, King Francis II died. As a result, Catherine released Louis, on the condition that his brother Antoine would renounce his right to regency of the future king Charles IX, showing her political savvy. Charles became king at only 10 years old, but he was a sickly child who even cried at his coronation. Catherine continued to consolidate her power and tried to end the anarchy in the country. She summoned church leaders to try and solve their differences, but this failed. She also tried to issue the Edict of Saint-Germain in an attempt to patch things up with the Protestants. However, the Guise brothers had to ruin everything, attacking Huguenot worshippers, killing 74 in what was known as the Massacre of Vassy. This sparked the French Wars of Religion, which would be on again and off again for the next 30 years. The Bourbon brothers formed an alliance with England and started to seize towns in France, leading Catherine to use the royal army to attack back. One of the brothers, Antoine, was killed in battle. Later, the Duke of Guise was killed in battle as well. With one Guise brother dead, the Edict of Amboise ended the war, and the French took back land from the English who had been meddling in the area. Tensions were still high as Catherine tried to figure out how to deal with the situation in France. She worked to quell any uprisings while also trying to marry her children to create political alliances, including marrying her daughter Margaret to one of the Bourbons, Henri of Navarre. With the various marriages and weddings of her children, Catherine became known for her lavish court festivals, also called magnificences. This of course brings us to her magnificence persona in Civ 6. These magnificences were grand affairs, often lasting weeks, and were filled with food, drink, sports, and shows. Catherine also took it upon herself to work on the design and planning of musical shows, which often contained mythological elements. These magnificences are now studied as works of art. This of course brings us to Magnificence Catherine's leader bonus, Catherine's Magnificences. This provides +2 culture for improved luxury resources adjacent to a theater district or chateau. Cities with a theater square gain the unique court festival project, which grants culture and tourism based on the number of luxury resources France possesses. This of course ties into the cultural impact of these festivals, as these festivals of course influenced French monarchs of the future. The benefits of these festivals extended beyond just cultural uses. Catherine used the festivals as political tools as well. As you've seen with her history, the nobles of France were constantly at each other's throats, especially with the religious civil war, and Catherine had to fight to ensure her family stayed in power. The festivals acted as a way for her to show her power and the majesty of the monarchy, while also distracting the nobles and keeping them entertained, rather than fighting. Not only that, Catherine had a group of around 80 noble ladies in the court who she used to attract the men and obtain information and help with her schemes. This group was known as l'Escadron Volant, or the Flying Squadron, which brings us to Black Queen Catherine's leader bonus. This bonus makes it so Catherine has +1 level of diplomatic visibility with every encountered civ, and receives a free spy and extra spy capacity with castles. All spies also start with a free promotion. This bonus makes sense with this context, but I might argue that maybe this bonus would have been more fitting for the Magnificence Catherine rather than the Black Queen, but I guess giving spies to the Black Queen is more badass. Despite her political savvy, sometimes there were just things she couldn't control. Shortly after the marriage of Margaret and Henri of Navarre, the St. Bartholomew's Day Massacre took place, in which Catholics massacred anywhere from 5,000 to 30,000 Protestants across France. This took place over the course of a few weeks, extending beyond just the urban cities. The massacre would stain Catherine's legacy, as many thought she was involved, while some believe it may have been King Charles IX who had declared it. Despite the massacre, things were oddly peaceful for the time being, until Charles passed away at 23. Then her third son, Henri III, came into power as an adult. The death of Francis also made it so Henri of Navarre, Margaret's Protestant husband, was next in line to rule. In order to maintain peace, Catherine tried to appease the Huguenots, which angered the Catholics, who had then formed the Catholic League. Unable to fight the Catholics and Protestants at the same time, Henri III had to cave to the League's demands. Eventually, Henri III called on the Duke of Guise, who had been spending the night with his mistress, one of Catherine's female spies. Henri had his bodyguards kill the Duke at the Château de Blois. Other Guise family members were also rounded up and killed. It is thought that hearing of her son's actions shortened her life, as Catherine saw that her family was rushing to its end. Shortly after, on January 5, 1589, Catherine died at the age of 69. Overall, the story of Catherine is quite fascinating, and she proved to be a very capable ruler who kept her family afloat. She developed a terrible reputation both from her supposed involvement in the occult, as well as her supposed involvement in terrible plots, which has marked her legacy to this day. But I'll leave you with what her son-in-law, Henri of Navarre, who later went on to become King Henri IV, said of Catherine. "I ask of you, what could a woman do? Left by the death of her husband, with 5 little children on her arms, and 2 families of France who were thinking of grasping the crown. Was she not compelled to play strange parts to deceive first one, and then the other, in order to guard, as she did, her sons, who successfully reigned through the wise conduct of that shrewd woman? I'm surprised she never did worse." And as usual, I hope you enjoyed that video. If you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing to the channel and hitting that thumbs up button, as it really helps my channel grow. I really enjoyed doing my research for this video, and the story of Catherine really reminded me of the story of Cersei from Game of Thrones. Feel free to let me know down below if I messed up any of the facts, or if you know anything cool about Catherine I might not have covered. Also, feel free to let me know if there's any interesting historical characters you want me to cover, and I'll try my best to get to them. Otherwise, again, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you have a great rest of your day. Peace.